Welcome back, Real World Retirement Podcast. I am your host, Alex Pushman. We're in episode 6. I hope you've been riding along this journey, getting some good stuff. I'm fired up today. We're going to be talking about a subject that has a lot of myths, a lot of questions, and it's really just complicated. And the good news is I arguably have brought in the leading, at least in my world, Social Security expert, Bradley Vey. Brad, thank you for joining us today, my man.
Hey, no problem. It seems somehow that's how I got the moniker of the office because I know the subject so well.
Yeah.
Because we incorporate it into every plan for our clients.
Yeah.
And
so Social Security, it's an interesting one. Now, one piece of data that Brad is a humble man and he wouldn't tell you. So Brad has been licensed through the NSSA since what, 2016, 17, somewhere in there?
Yeah, 16 or 17 is when they first started. So it was close. It was within the first year of them having the designation for Social Security plan. It is the only accredited designation for Social Security planning out there too.
Right, which is a big deal. So it stands for the National Social Security Advisor. And the last statistic, this may be a little outdated, but the last statistic I saw around that certification, just of why I'm highlighting this, is less than 1% of advisors, at least in the state of Michigan, and I think it was a tiny bit higher nationally, but less than 1%, specifically in Michigan, where Brad is an advisor, has this certification. A lot of people would ask me, hey, why do people not get this as advisors? What I always start with is think about it. It's really, we don't make any extra money helping people with Social Security. We don't charge for that. That's just a value add. The second piece is a lot of advisors don't really know it, and it becomes a liability for them. So like oftentimes, I know at least in our firm at Foguth Financial Group, when people have questions, they're calling Brad.
Yeah, and it's from my experience. So I started in the financial services industry in 2007. I started on the back end building plans for advisors to present to their clients. And, I was like a phone warrior. And whenever I would talk to an advisor, I'd like, hey, what do you recommend for Social Security? And I always got the same answer. They said, well, I just tell them to call Social Security office.
Right.
Well, if you've ever had the experience of calling up there, one, you'll call up there with all the greatest questions in the world, and you're going to get someone on the phone that's going to schedule you an appointment a month out.
Right.
Right. So by the time you get to your appointment a month out, you're not even going to remember your question, right? Or questions.
Right.
And the best part about it is they are not allowed to give any advice. They're only allowed to take and tell you what amount you would receive at what age.
Interesting.
And they only have a short period of time. Like 3 minutes is what the average call is supposed to be, under 3 minutes with them.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's so many retirees and so few federal workers.
There's something crazy like 250,000 phone calls a day.
A day.
Yeah.
Like that's just unbelievable. Like I've said that in workshops before, and I'm up there second guessing myself. Like, did I make this number up in my head? But it's crazy because there's so many millions of retirees, and the youngest boomers are going to be turning 70 soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's crazy. So there's not a whole lot of help out there for people. And when I left my previous job and decided to go down the advisor route, I had been talking to my dad and my stepmom about retirement. They asked me what I did. And when I was talking to him, I said, hey, have you ever asked your advisor about what to do with Social Security? And my dad just kind of chuckled. He goes, I've brought it up, and they kind of just, wipe it under the rug, kind of just like, oh, well, yeah, you'll when you retire, we'll discuss it. But usually we have you call Social Security to discuss it.
Yeah, that's the end of it. So, and on that note, Brad, and not to cut you off, just a quick question. I know one of the things that I always like to kind of start with is because we could dive in and talk 3 hours on Social Security really quickly, and you were kind of getting into it. So just to tee you up, what's kind of your story about why you became an advisor? You're kind of passionate at this space. So I feel like you were going into it.
Well, I mean, I guess it was luck to get in the financial services industry, to be honest. Right place at the right time to the right person. But then I was on the back end, building and designing plans for people to present to their clients. And it just so happened, my dad actually, I just got off the phone with him. He's still working. He'll be 69 in January.
Okay.
He wants to do one more year, January 26, he's saying. But anyways, during this time I was working at this firm. It was 2000. I had just gone through 2007 through 2011. Right. So 07 to 09, huge market drop.
Yeah.
09 up into 2011, the markets came back, not quite all the way. And then all of a sudden that summer in August, the market started, or not August, in July, it started going down again. And my dad was scared to death of it because he just had watched his account cut in half, watched it climb back, and then it started having a big drop again, and he got scared. And so he called me up and said, "Hey, what do you do?" Right. So I told him that I let him know that I help create plans for people that are nearing retirement or already retired. And so Dad was actually client numero uno, right?
Right.
And it just worked out. Actually, Grandma was client number one, but Dad was pretty close behind. And so I said, I like that aspect of it more, instead of like, I was actually would put these great plans together, give them to the advisors who knew if they even showed the plan to the clients.
And you didn't get that personal touch with them.
I was it was out of my control. So I decided if I was going to stay in the industry, that I wanted to go out and help people just like my mom and my dad, so that when they're ready to retire, they have guidance along the way.
Got it.
And so, and it's just, gone from there. It started out as, kind of a part-time thing.
Yeah.
And then went off to another firm for, a year and a half or so. But it wasn't fitting. And then when Mike called me and had started expanding, we sat down, had lunch, and from there we just decided to move forward. And now that's been what? 9 years almost.
Yeah, I know. We're coming up on a decade here.
I know. Geez. Woo.
So I know you brought a really good, unique situation. And I think, from what you had told me prior to us jumping on here and starting the podcast, I think the example you're going to use is a great example that tells a lot also about your heart.
Yeah.
Which, I could talk about that on a personal level, but
right.
I think this example tells a lot about your heart, but also your expertise in the Social Security space. So if you don't mind, let's kind of jump into that case study, because I think this is going to resonate with a lot of the audience out there.
Yeah. So we do a lot of just specific Social Security events. And sometimes people attend thinking that it's actually the Social Security Administration that is putting it on, which it is not. And so I always like to start out by saying, hey, I do not work for Social Security. I'm a financial advisor. Why is a financial advisor up here talking to you about Social Security?
Right.
And I said, and it's because nobody else does planning on Social Security. So I did one of these. It's my favorite event to do. I could do it with my eyes closed, no screen or anything. But at the end of one of the classes, a lady came up. Her name was Carol. And she said, great talk. I don't really have any money to invest. I really came here because I had questions about Social Security. And I said, schedule an appointment and come in and sit down. And I promise you, I will do everything in my power to help you. Right? We'll get down to it. I'll answer any questions and I'll find a solution that best fits your need. At the time, I didn't even know what it was that she needed, but she obviously had came there for a reason. And I told her, she said she didn't want to waste my time. And I said, it's not a waste of my time. I come up here, I give the talk, I invite you to come in and sit down for no cost. My promise is it doesn't matter. We don't work with everybody.
Yep.
But my philosophy has always been, if you always do the right thing, it doesn't matter.
Right. Amen to that. Amen to that.
And so she scheduled an appointment. She came in, and then I got the full story. So she got married right out of, I don't know if it was right out of college or whatnot. But she got married young. She got pregnant, and within a few months, her husband was killed in a freak accident in a factory at work. And so the rule states for Social Security widows benefits that you have to be married for 9 months, and that's what she was told by multiple people. Now, I don't know who she talked to.
Right.
So I know she called Social Security, and they basically said, it doesn't look like you qualify. And so the key word to that whole story was that she said freak accident. right? So right after that, daughter's born. She starts receiving a Social Security benefit from the daughter, or the daughter receives a Social Security benefit, and the mom, Carol, receives a Social Security so their widow's benefits from the husband passing because she's the daughter's a minor,
Right.
And so for 18 years, she gets Social Security. Daughter turns 18, graduates high school and everything, and then all of a sudden the payments stop. So she, was single mom this whole time. She worked hard labor jobs, and she was actually I actually saw her not too long ago, but she was working cleaning like office buildings office buildings.
Hard work.
Yeah, getting up and down on your knees a lot.
Right.
And she wasn't she was making a living, and she just said, I've been doing this a long time. I need a change. This is killing my back. I'm not going to be able to do it this way. And I said, well, let's see what we can do. So we called up Social Security. So I explained to Social Security what had happened in a way that they knew. I got that I hinted at that I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, you knew the rules.
Yeah, and so they put us on hold. And about 10 minutes later, they came back and they said, you're right, she qualifies for Social Security. We don't know the benefit right now because it was so long ago. We actually have to go to the archives to get an answer, right? I was like, okay, the archives.
That's a good start.
Yeah, and so they said, what we'll do is we'll schedule a call. And it was like a month out, which even for that research, though, we schedule a call a month out. So it's funny part of it is we call from my cell phone in the appointment.
Okay.
But when we set the appointment, we say, hey, call Carol's phone number. So the day of her appointment, because she called me, we talked a lot, right?
Yeah.
And the day of the appointment, my phone rings, and they called my cell phone, and I explained to them what was going on, said, no, you need to call Carol's cell phone. So she hung up with me, called Carol. They had the meeting. So it actually worked out. It couldn't have worked out better for her. So she was earning basically about $1,500 a month doing what she was doing.
Yeah.
Right. Not a whole heck of a lot of money, but it was
getting by.
It was getting by. Right. So the widow's benefit kicks in at age 60. You can take it earlier than 62.
Right. That's a big deal.
So, because she was right around 60, and she was going to have to wait till 62. Well, her widow's benefit at age 60 was about $50 more a month, $50 or $100 more a month than what she was earning working. Right. The better part of it is, since she is taking the widow's benefit, she can allow her own benefit to continue get full retirement benefit at age 67, and then get the 8% delayed retirement credit each year up till age 70. And at 70, she will get an increase of about this is before the inflation got high as it did. Was gonna have about $400 additional per month coming in than she was getting with the widow's benefit.
Right.
And she was just grateful as can be. It actually, and it made me smile too.
Absolutely.
It made me feel good.
Absolutely.
And so one day I get a call from Kristen, and she's like, hey, are you going to be in the Northville office today? And I said, well, yeah, I'm here. And she's like, well, are you going to leave for lunch or anything? And I was like, no, I'll be here all day. I'm not going to leave until I'm done with my last appointment. And she goes, okay, good. Don't leave. I said, okay. About an hour later, Carol walked in.
Oh my goodness.
And it was in the fall, and she knew my anniversary. My anniversary was in October. So she gave me a nice anniversary card with a gift certificate to take my wife out to dinner.
My goodness.
Which was
sweet.
cool as can be. Yeah. And so funny, I ran into her recently though. I can't remember where it was. But she actually is still working. She's changed jobs.
Okay.
She's actually still working, changed jobs, and has had nothing but good things to say and everything. Her retirement's better than she ever anticipated that it could ever be.
Right.
And, all it was because I knew how the rules worked with Social Security. That's it. Now, there's a lot of rules. Do I know every single rule in my head? No. Right. But we have a resource, the NSSA, that we can reach out to anytime, and they will have the exact answer for us.
And they're a phenomenal resource. And to your point, though, how many rules? It's like 2,000.
So there's 567
ways to claim the benefits.
567 ways for a married couple to claim benefits, and there's over 4,000 rules.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
So it's complicated, right? It is complicated.
It is very complex. You know, when I'm sitting down with a client, I look at majority of my clients are married. So I'll use a married example. When I'm sitting down with a married couple and we're deciding when to take Social Security, my number one goal is to help take care of the surviving spouse when the husband when one predeceases the other. It's not always that way, right? Because you get to keep the higher of the two benefits. And if you're past full retirement age, you get the full whatever benefit the spouse was earning. If they were we try to maximize the higher earning spouse's benefit, and that's where we start. Right?
Yeah, and then but to your point, like most of the time, and we play by the numbers, that's all we do.
Yeah,
most of the time, the male will predecease the female in the normal.
So statistically, men marry younger.
Yeah,
by a couple, 2-3 years. Right. And statistically, women live longer.
Right.
So the
double whammy.
Exactly. Yeah. So, my goal is, when my grandpa passed away, my grandma got a little kick up in Social Security. His pension was cut in half, and she struggled. Like it was struggling. Like it was crazy. And I look at it and thinking like, hey, if someone would have been able to give her a little bit better advice on it, right? She could have been in a better spot because my grandparents retired young. And so they both started taking Social Security right when it was available.
Yeah, right.
And so for their situation, it could have been done better. And, I've sat down with thousands of prospective clients that are all going to do one thing. They're all going to retire at some point. And I'll tell you, if they're a married couple, majority of the time, the spouse, the husband wants to make sure their spouse is taken care of.
Yeah.
If something happens to him.
Absolutely.
First.
And I think that's kind of like a man thing, like instinctually, right? Like if I talk to you about with your wife or me with my wife, like that's naturally, a pretty normal thing.
Yeah, right. And it could be, even if the wife's Social Security benefit's higher, right? Mm-hmm. You still want to maximize. You want to maximize the highest earning spouses.
Right, because you got two balls you're balancing.
Right. And one of the biggest things I see is people don't look at the tax aspect of it. Like they say, I want to take my Social Security early. I just want to make sure I get the most out of it, which is a great attitude if you have the full picture. Mm-hmm. Right. And I say there's no wrong or right time or no specific time for every single person that when they should take Social Security. It all depends on your unique situation.
Amen to that. And so, when it comes to Social Security, number one, if you're somebody out there who, oh, hey, I'm taking it out at 62. Hey, I'm taking it out at 70. Hey, I'm taking it out at full retirement age. Do yourself a service, verify that's the right thing. Because how many times, I know we have like case study after case study on this, Brad, but how many times does somebody come in, they have a plan, you run the numbers, verify, hey, we actually probably want to do it this way, and it's much different than how they intended, right? Like, I mean, that happens daily, weekly. All
the time.
You know what I'm saying? Where you have a game plan, but you got to look at the full picture. So now when you say the full picture, Brad, what are you really talking about? I think I know, but when you say you got to look at the full picture, what do you mean by that?
You got to look at every aspect of your client's retirement. You got to look at their where their income's going to come from. If they have a pension, what option are they going to choose? You got to decide, make recommendations when to best take Social Security for both of you, right? We got to make sure that if you have a lump sum pension option, that we run the numbers to see, hey, can we do it better, right? Maybe you don't need a pension. Maybe you'd rather have it as savings. You don't need it to live off of. Yep. So we're going to run a calculation to see where's the break-even point and what rate of return you have to get to make it beneficial in your point. And the number one thing, and I say this is the number one thing that hurts people in retirement is taxes.
Yeah.
Right. Tax is, if it's unfortunate the way they look at Social Security and taxation. It's kind of like a surtax. If you look at the tax code without Social Security, the brackets go 10 or 0, 10, 12. Then it goes to 22%. You start taking Social Security back at around that $18,000 mark, all of a sudden you're paying like 18.5% tax.
Really?
Then it jumps up to 27% tax. And it's all about what income they have and where it puts them. And there's one part of that where for every dollar they take out, it's about an $8,000 window. Every dollar they're taking out is almost a 50% tax on it.
Wow.
And so the reason people don't know this or talk about it, because most advisors don't give tax advice.
And
right?
they don't know.
They don't know. And even if you could, it catches people off guard when they're doing their required minimum distributions. But even if you do it, you do your required minimum distributions, your income goes up, taxation on Social Security goes up. You don't know that, though. All you do is get a 1099 in the mail, and you give it to your CPA or whoever prepares your taxes, and you either withheld enough tax or you didn't, so you're going to have to pay or get a refund. But if we have the software where it shows us,
correct.
hey, we know the next dollar you take out, exactly how much tax you're going to pay on it,
Right.
and then the 10,000 later,
Right.
and so on.
Right.
And so our goal is to make sure that you keep more in your pocket and less going to Uncle Sam.
Amen.
Now, are we miracle workers? No. But with proper planning and adjusting and having the right type of accounts to pull from, we can minimize taxation, definitely. Some people, we can even eliminate it in the long run.
And you're talking, again, specifically looking at the whole picture.
You have to look at the whole picture. You can't just I was telling someone the other day that they said they were asking about really what a fiduciary is. And I think it's a misnomer out there what people think of fiduciary is.
I agree with that.
So as a fiduciary, we have to have every piece of the puzzle before we can ever make a recommendation.
Correct.
Right? So if I don't know your situation and what you have, how can I ever make a recommendation?
Right.
Right? Whereas, so if someone just comes in off the street and says, I have $100,000 I want to invest, but doesn't tell you anything else, guess what? You're not getting a recommendation from me.
You're right.
Because I have no clue how it fits with the rest of your situation.
Correct.
And I could end up doing something that could actually harm you more than help you.
Amen to that.
So we're big on, it's our company, we do this, but we're huge on full planning.
Yes. Yeah. And I know you and I have this belief, and we obviously have bias to our own belief system, but I think it's the right bias of comprehensive planning, making sure we're looking at the whole picture. Because some people, they'll come up to me, right? And, usually it's when I'm like golfing or something.
Right.
So it's like, oh, you're a financial planner? What do I do here?
Right,
and I'm like, well, you got 30 minutes because
Right.
I got to get some details to give you that answer.
Yeah.
Right. And always people always say, well, the word, I always hate it. I hate the answer I have to give when I say it depends.
Yeah.
Right.
But it truly does.
It does, man. You got to get the full spectrum to give people a good answer.
Yeah. This is heading into retirement and choosing to work with someone is probably the biggest decision that they're going to ever have to make in their life, right?
Yeah.
And so to make a recommendation without knowing the full situation, I think is like going to the dentist and just saying, hey, one of my teeth hurt, but you get to guess which one it is you get to pull, right?
That's a great analogy.
So I know I just thought of that off the top of my head.
So let me ask you a couple more questions with Social Security. So when we're talking about taxation of Social Security, what does that look like? What are some of the main things people should know when we talk about taxation of specific to Social Security? Is there limits of income? What goes into that equation? Can you kind of walk me through that? Because I know that one's complicated.
Yeah. So what they do is they look at your provisional income.
Okay.
Right. Which essentially is your modified adjusted gross income off your tax returns. And then they add in any half of your Social Security.
Okay.
Which is, if you're a married couple and have $50,000 in Social Security, which is not unheard of these days.
Right.
Right. $25,000 gets added back into your income.
Okay.
All right. Then they add in a tax-free interest from municipal bonds.
Okay.
Right? So municipal bonds pay tax-free interest. Great. You never pay federal tax on the dividend or state tax if it's a Michigan municipal bond. But all that interest you get, if you get it, goes back into the calculation for your provisional income.
Got it.
So you add up all that income, right? Basically, all your income less the standard deduction plus half your Social Security and tax-free interest. And if you're a married couple filing jointly, and if it's under $32,000, you pay 0 tax on your Social Security.
And that's for a married
For
filing
a married
jointly.
couple filing jointly.
Okay, so now that's 0 under 32,000 after that equation.
Yep.
You're not paying tax on your Social Security.
Correct.
Okay, so then where does it come in? What are those other
So
thresholds?
once you go over 32,000, between 32 and 44,000, they're going to start taxing your Social Security up to 50% of it.
Okay. Not a 50% tax, 50% of the number.
Of your Social
Okay.
Security will be taxable. So in that case of 50,000, if you reach it to the 50% taxable, 25,000 is taxable.
Got it.
Here's the kicker though. If you go over, hit 44,000 and above of provisional income, they're going to tax 85% of your Social
Wow,
Security.
that's a big jump.
Yes, it's not a small number. So most people need more than $44,000 to live on in retirement, right? The majority. So when they first put these thresholds in, about 17% of the population was going to pay tax on Social Security. Today, about 78% of all people will pay some kind of tax on their Social Security.
Wow.
Yeah, and it adds up. So and they tax it at your current tax rate. So today, if you're in a 20% tax bracket and you have 50,000 of Social Security and 85% is taxable, you're paying $8,500 in federal tax.
Right.
Right. So you get to keep,
That's a big number.
big number. Now, the real scary part is what happens in the future when our deficit right now is what, $37 trillion?
Yeah, 37.7, I think last time I looked at US
Trillion,
debt
it's a lot
clock.
of numbers.
Yeah.
Eventually, we've got to do something to get that debt down. Well, number one is cutting expenses, but the majority of federal spending, I want to say like 75% is defense, Social Security, and Medicare.
Okay.
Right. So the other 25%, which is all the other stuff, I don't even know if there's enough we can cut
Yeah.
to bring that deficit down to make it eliminate it or make it reasonable. They're going to have to raise taxes eventually somewhere.
Right.
And so the big thing is there's steps and strategies you can take now to ensure that if they raise taxes and they double it, right, and it's 40%, instead of having to pay $17,000 in tax,
Just
on
on
your
that-
50,000,
Just on just on Social Security.
just on Social Security. If you have separate buckets to pull from to help control your taxes,
Yeah.
you can at least reduce the taxes, in some cases eliminate.
Yeah.
And we've been able to do, I don't want to go too far into this, but
Right.
there's one tool you can use that never causes taxation anywhere, never raises provisional income, and it's a distribution from a Roth IRA. So the big thing is you diversify your assets, right,
Yep.
to reduce risk to be able to make it through retirement. You want to have diversify your
Taxable investment
taxable
accounts.
investment accounts,
Right.
right. Retirement accounts never been taxed. Every dollar that comes out,
Your IRA, 401k, 403b.
Yep.
Yep. Tax deferred.
Yep.
Yep.
Tax deferred. Got a tax break for putting it in. The second is, just a brokerage account. So you have 100,000 and you buy Tesla stock, and you only pay taxes moving forward on the growth of that profits.
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah. Capital,
Right?
hence capital gains, short
capital
or
gains,
long term.
short or
Right.
long term, which you
Right.
can pay 0% long term capital gains tax, based depending on your income. We're not going to dive into that.
Yeah.
But the third bucket is having a tax free bucket, which is our Roth money.
Amen.
Right. Also, it can be considered like an HSA because that money grows in there tax free, and as long as it's used for medical expenses, you don't pay any taxes on it. So, if you have all these tools available, you want to make sure that you have a little bit in each of the categories to help you later on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so, we do huge Roth conversion planning. And, there's all these great things about a Roth, but the number one thing is it helps you control taxes.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with that more. And it's funny because, to your point, and tax planning is like, at least from the families I've sat down with, like I never read an article on this or a white paper, but like out of all the people I've sat down with, we've given thousands of second opinions, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, we can't work with everybody. That's okay,
Right.
And kind of like your client, I'll say, but really you just helped her on Social Security, and you weren't even managing any money for her. You're just helping her out to be a good person. Yeah. But when it comes to taxes, it's the number one, at least in my experience, underplanned area of retirement. Why? Raise your hand if you like talking about taxes. Well, there's not a lot of folks who are going to raise their hand to that. And so, again, if that's you don't have a tax plan, you don't have a Social Security plan, reach out. These are the things that we're going to provide to you. There's not going to be strings attached, just like Brad was talking about. This is about education. This is about doing your due diligence. And again, you got to trust your heart. But for us, it's always like, hey, you got to work with people who have your best interests, who are true fiduciaries.
Correct. Not everyone is ready at the time that we sit down with them. People are starting to plan a little earlier now. And, it's always makes sense to get a second opinion. Absolutely. It doesn't matter if it's your brother that's managing your assets. There's two phases. There's the accumulation phase and the distribution phase of life. They work in opposite ways. It always makes sense to get a second opinion to make sure you're on the right track.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I started laughing when you just said get a second opinion. My parents, I'm obviously their financial advisor, right?
Well, they're coming at night and meeting with me.
He just never told me, right? But even my parents, when I first started talking to them, I did their whole plan. They were teachers, right? Didn't have $1 million. Right. Luckily, had a great pension, right? And all that stuff. But when I sat down with them, I told them, I go, hey, Ma, get another opinion. Don't, even though I'm your son and I know we're going to work together and you want Alex to do it and I'm always going to do right by you, kind of to your point earlier, treat everybody like your mother, right? Yeah. I encouraged them to do it. It's education. It's a good thing to get education. You're never going to be hurting on the education piece when it comes to these topics.
Yeah. No, and it just made me think not last night, 2 nights ago, I had an appointment. A gentleman came in. And it was a third appointment, and I asked if he had any questions, and he didn't have any questions. So I said, when does it make sense to start the process? And he got this look on his face. He goes, this is a big step for me. Yeah. And I said, I don't take that lightly. This is a hard thing to do. Right. And I said, you don't know me from Adam, but this is how I work. I basically was like, I look at every situation like it's my mom and dad. Yeah. And if I cannot say I would recommend this for my mom and dad, it does not get recommended. Right. And I said, we've been around a long time. We've been in Brighton. It was in Brighton, our office. And I said, we've been here for years. And I said, I promise you, I'm going to look out for you in your best interest. Yeah. And he said, he goes, yeah, I know. He goes, all right, let's get it going and do it. Yeah. And he's going to retire. He might retire next year. So we'll see.
And you probably helped him come to that idea that was okay.
Yeah. No, a lot of times I got to give permission for people to retire.
Am I okay, Brad? Am I okay? Yeah.
My dad, I was just on the phone with earlier. He's been pushing off retirement. And he knows, I've told him 1,000,000 times that you're going to be good. But still, it's that, and all he's done his whole life is work and save. Yeah. Yeah. Work and save. That's it. Right. Right. Now he's going to have to do not save, right, and not work.
And there's something, and I was talking about this in a prior podcast, but the psychology, right, and the emotion that's attached to hey, it's no longer growing. I'm going to turn on. Now, hopefully, it still grows if you do your job, right? But that taking out of it is a whole other component people don't think about. Yeah. Right. And so let me ask you a question, Brad, because when we talk about Social Security, we talked about the taxation, and basically what you're saying is, listen, if you're married filing jointly, if you're a single filer, there's different thresholds and whatnot. But you're under $32,000 of that provisional income is tax free. 32 to 44, 50% of your Social Security benefit is now taxable income.
Up to, it's not all at once, it goes up. But
the scale's up. And then once you hit $44,000 of income, they're saying, hey, now 85% of the benefit is taxable income. Right. Now, going into Social Security, would you be able to point out, are there any myths? Are there any incorrect pieces of information that you regularly hear that you think would be important to let the audience just kind of hear some of those?
Yeah. So one of them is, clickbait right now, and there's millions of articles that come out every year that say Social Security is running out of money.
Right.
Right. Which without changes, right, they will run out of money and benefits will have to be cut. But Social Security has always been a system of the people current workers are paying the current retirees. So then I hear that it's the Congress and the government has stolen the money from Social Security. That is not the case either. The trillions that are in the trust fund still.
What is it, like 3-point-something trillion?
3-point-something trillion is actually invested in Treasury. So when interest rates went up like this and stuff, it actually made money, right? And so it makes money every year to go into it. But the reason we're having a problem with it is we're having less kids. Baby boomers had less kids. The largest transfer of wealth is going to be happening over the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Because baby boomers are getting older and passing away, and this money's going to go on the next generation. And right now, I want to say it's like 2.2 people are paying into Social Security for every recipient.
Right. So it's a little thin.
Yeah.
And then they're saying that, what is it, 2033 or 2034?
2034. Now it's 2035. They say the trust fund's going to run out of money without any changes, and that they'll only be enough to pay 70,
0.73 or something like that.
Yeah, like it's like 75 to 79% of the current benefits.
Right.
Now, and that's all the way through 2090.
Okay, so there's some life on that thing.
Yeah, and then it would have to be cut more. So
what do you think's going to change?
So
they got to make changes to have that not happen.
Yeah. So what's been kicked around? So Warren Buffett, everyone knows who that, one of the greatest investors of all time, Berkshire Hathaway. He penned a letter to a publication, I can't remember which one, a few years back, and said, "I'm 100% confident they will get Social Security system fixed. Here's 3 things that they could do that would fix it for a very long time. Number 1 is raising full retirement age, right?
Yeah.
Which has been done in the past.
Right. It used to be 65,
Yep.
right? And then they changed it to 66 and 10 months, 66 and 8 months. 67 is
Yep.
most people now.
Yep. And so they've made changes in the past. That's number 1. We're living longer.
Right. It wasn't designed to last 30 years.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
It was not.
Because when Social Security started, what, 1935? 1935.
Yep.
And people weren't living as long as they are
Life
today.
expectancy at 35 was like 58 years old or something, and you couldn't start benefits till 65. So it was designed to be for those people who live longer than life expectancy.
Right.
Now it's drastically changed along the way.
So really quickly, if they extend, okay, we're gonna raise full retirement age. Do you think they do something like, okay, so today you could claim at 62 early? Do you think they'll mess with that early benefit number 2?
It's possible, but I don't. It hasn't really been thrown around.
So what are they saying for full retirement age? We move from 67 to...
It would be gradual. So like maybe we would be 68, then it goes 69, then 70. So gradually over time. If you're 55 and older now, you'd be protected, right? There's laws. House Resolution 32 was passed in March 99. It protects those during retirement and retired are their Social Security benefits.
House Resolution 32.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the one that basically is protecting our Social Security.
Yep.
And that's the one people would care about who are worried about that.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Push back full retirement age. Yep. What else did Buffett say?
Number 2 is increasing the amount that we pay in and our employers pay into Social Security. So right now we pay 6.2 and our employer pays 6.2. If you're self-employed, you pay 12.4 plus Medicare. And he said raise it up from 6.2 to 7.55%, but not all at once. Gradually over time, a little here, a little here, a little here, a little here, a little here. So it's not a big hit all at once.
Right. And just on that note, like for me, this is my personal opinion. How I look at that is if I had to pick, because this is we got to pick. Right. We know there's a problem. Something has to happen. If we had to pick, hey, would I prefer my folks who are retired and on a fixed income to either get less or pay more in tax, or me who's working, have income coming in. And again, you got to pick a poison. Yeah. I would sign up for me all day. I'm not on a fixed income. I'm on my earning. And that's what they're talking about. Hey, we're going to raise taxes on employers and employees who are still working.
Correct. Exactly. I mean, someone's got to do it. Right. We can work longer, right? So gradually increase it. And then the third thing is getting rid of the earnings limit. So right now, on the first 160 some odd thousand that you earn, that 6.2% is paid. Now, above that, it is not. So
zero. It goes to zero.
Zero. It goes to zero. And Warren Buffett said something about, having a threshold above 400,000 would have to pay back into it again. I say, well, why give the 160 to 400,000?
Just do it above the number.
Everybody just do
it above the number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like, think about it like this. Like I always joke around when I talk to this with clients. I'm like, think about it, Detroit Lions fan, obviously, right. Go Lions, but the Jared Goff, he backs that bad boy out in his first paycheck.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. These guys are making $40 million a year. And to your point, if you said, hey, if you took that same 6.2%, and you ran that from the 163, 165 grand up to that number, that solves the math.
Yeah, the combination of those three, our kids, our great grandkids wouldn't even have to worry about it.
Right.
Right. So hopefully the sooner they do it, the better. But anything in government, you know how that works. So it'll probably happen at the 25th hour when they shut down.
Yeah, right. And then so let me ask you another question. So okay, so number one, they're gonna play with the full retirement age number.
Yep.
Number two, increase taxation on the workforce.
Yep.
Number three, basically play with the earnings limit.
Earnings limit, yep.
Now, one I've heard get thrown around, and this one I don't want to say scares me, but I think is one that is fearful for a lot of families, especially families who are in higher net worth. Have you gone into heard anything about this like conversation around means testing? What's your take on that?
So I don't think that my opinion is that they're not going to do the means testing.
I agree with that.
Because you pay into Social Security.
Right.
If we didn't pay into it, then that's a different story. But if we're paying into it, then we have a right to get it.
You earn that benefit.
And there's already a cap on the amount you can get.
Right.
And people are going to get back way more than what they've paid in.
Right.
So people are like, well, as you look at the numbers of what you paid in, you're going to get like 10 times more back.
Right.
And so I don't think they'll do the means testing only because people have paid in. Maybe they'll adjust the taxation on it a little bit, if anything.
Yeah.
But I don't think they'll take benefits away.
And I appreciate that. I always like to get your opinion on this stuff because, like, for me, just to let everybody know, means testing is like where it came up as I was talking to a client about FAFSA. Yeah. Right. And they did a FAFSA application. They're like, why is the government drilling me through FAFSA on how much I'm worth and how much of this? I'm like, well, FAFSA, if you have too much money, they're saying, hey, you don't really need it. And maybe this person over here who doesn't have as much money or net worth, et cetera, needs the benefit for college. Right.
Right.
To your point, FAFSA different. You're not paying in your whole life.
No.
It's a loan for college. It's not a benefit you've been paying into for 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Right? It's different to your point.
I don't think I filled out a FAFSA for my daughter. We're just paying for her college. But,
right.
I think, though, if she fills it out, it's for scholarships, too, though, I found out. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
I just want to get your take. Your pulse on this thing is closer than 99.9 guys I talk to in the space.
I don't think people, for one, the largest voting population right now are retirees, right? And people nearing retirement. They're not going to shoot themselves in the foot.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's political suicide to do something like that.
Yeah.
And there's much better ways of doing things.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Absolutely. So I think that at this point, I don't think there's going to be a means testing. But, actually people can donate their Social Security back.
Really?
People do it.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, I swear.
I've never actually met somebody who did that.
Yeah, I've never met someone, but I've heard, I think it was from the guys at the NSSA.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I did not even know you could do it. So you can donate your Social Security back to the pot.
Social Security back to the pot.
No kidding. Okay, now, kind of wrapping things up, any, best practices, nuggets that you would get out there that you think would be important around Social Security that people are thinking of, or know a rule or a myth, or anything that kind of jumps out?
The biggest thing is you want to just make sure, if you haven't started taking Social Security, just check your earnings history. Because if it's incorrect, if there's a missing year, it could affect your benefits.
Absolutely.
All right. So you want to check that every year. The sooner you catch it, Social Security Administration will actually, if it's early on, they'll do all the research and everything that's needed to get it corrected. If it's after like 3 years, you have to do all the research to get it corrected.
Oh,
right.
That's good information.
Yes, because you want to make sure you catch it, because most people don't have pay stubs from 10 years ago.
Right.
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 I mean, they say keep stuff for 7 years.
And so where you would get that information, you go to ssa.gov.
Yep. And you would set up an online login, and then you can log in and pull your most recent statement.
Yeah. And one thing to just say, like, just from, again, I know Brad knows this, but just to say it, you think about it. If you're out there listening, one of the most fraudulent things that takes place is fake Social Security websites for the Social Security Administration. Yeah. Why? What's the first thing they're asking you? Your Social Security number, right? So make sure it is ssa.gov.
Yeah, and Social Security is never going to call and ask for
yeah, so don't give it to anybody over the phone for the record. Absolutely. Anything else, Brad? This is good, and I know there's so many people out there who are worried about Social Security.
The other thing is just making sure that you figure out the best way, how Social Security best fits in your situation. At least have talk to someone that knows how Social Security works and how it can incorporate with their overall plan.
Yeah.
Because if you take benefits, after 1 year, it's irrevocable. You can't make changes, right? So say you're 62, take benefits. At 63 and a half, you say, wait a second, maybe I shouldn't have taken it early. Well, you're locked in, you're stuck.
Yeah.
Right. But if you take benefits, you have a year to pay back benefits, and it's like you never took them.
Okay.
So
that's your do-over.
Yeah. That's
you get 12 months, you got to pay all the money back.
Yeah. So you just want to make sure it's the right decision for your situation on when you take it. That's
right,
it.
right. And you make sure you get it right up front. Talk to a professional. Yeah. Again, I'm going to encourage everybody out there, if you don't have this, please reach out with us, engage with us. Again, whether it's a comment, through social media, whether it's a message through social media, whether it's an email to Brad directly. We are here. We want to educate you. Brad, thank you.
You're welcome.
For coming on today, man. You are the wealth of information on Social Security.
It's, I know sometimes I laugh about it, but it's just because I've done it so much.
Yeah.
And I understand how it all works together. And
experience matters.
Experience is a huge thing. And no problem. I get people calling all the time asking questions, their advisors and stuff, which is great. I don't mind doing it at all. So.
Yeah. And again, on that, if you have a simple question, again, reach out. That's what we're here for. Social Security Hacks with Bradley Van. I mean, you could probably start your own podcast on that one, Social Security Forever. But hey, hopefully you enjoyed today's episode, Real World Retirement. We hope you're enjoying this journey and learning some good stuff. Don't forget to follow, engage with us. And episode 6, Brad, thanks again. And we'll see you next time on Real World Retirement. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Advisory services provided by Foguth Wealth Management LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. For additional information, visit advisorinfo.sec.gov and search 327434.